1 year ago. 1 year ago, I stood right here and I shouted into the void what at the time I perceived to be an unpopular opinion. Even more than that, a hate-worthy opinion. Because how dare you not find fulfillment in Nintendo's only $70 release on Switch, their biggest production ever. Millions of dollars spent in making this world as big and as expansive in every adjective for just humongous as it possibly could have been, all played on your aging handheld device so you can take it anywhere you want. I was wrong, but not about Tears of the Kingdom. I was wrong in thinking that I was alone. Since then, many people echoed the same feelings I did. Some had already done so before I had the chance, but it didn't feel like a movement. Now it seems as if every Zelda content creator under the sun has had some not so nice things to say about this game. So we reach the present. Why make another video on Tears of the Kingdom if every critique has seemingly already been made? Everyone's moved on and the Zelda community is facing weird, uncertain times. I made this because, well, in truth, what you're watching right now isn't what was supposed to have been made. This wasn't the plan. You see, after I revisited Tears of the Kingdom in 2023 and started this YouTube channel, I still didn't want to give up on the game. Behind the scenes, I set myself a challenge to make Tears of the Kingdom into the game I always wanted it to be. If I had problems with its combat, I'd fix them. If I had problems with the sages, I'd ignore them. If I had problems with the Zonai devices, I simply wouldn't use them. And so, the Making Tears of the Kingdom into my perfect Zelda game project was born. A challenge run. I wouldn't be able to utilize any Zonai devices at all, even the ones that didn't consume battery. I wouldn't be able to eat food unless prepared into a meal, but also limited myself to 1 meal slot, unlocking more for each dungeon beat. The same was true for arrows. I would only be able to use 5 per encounter, adding 1 per dungeon beat. On top of all that, I would be banned from utilizing fast travel as to make me appreciate the world more, and finally force myself to engage with the parts of the game that didn't care much to be engaged with. All with the objective of simulating the experience of challenge, discovery, and wonder that Breath of the Wild once provided me. But that's where I had made a critical mistake. Tears of the Kingdom is not Breath of the Wild. It might have claimed to be a sequel to Breath of the Wild, but it spews lies from its corrupted mouth. It deceits with its theming, it manipulates with its looks. Tears of the Kingdom leaves behind the essential aspects of Breath of the Wild's world design, but it doesn't just leave them behind, it actively works to undermine the world Breath of the Wild had built. And as I proceeded with my challenge and things failed to click, I made the fateful decision to revisit Breath of the Wild once again to make sure that I just hadn't lost my love for Zelda along the way. And what I found is that I hadn't. I just realized that Tears of the Kingdom is a parody of Breath of the Wild. The era of the wild. Zelda as a true open-world game. What does that mean to you? Because you'll find that there is a fundamental disconnect between what some players thought it meant and what the developers actually did mean.
What I wanted to accomplish with this new Zelda was to create a game where the user can truly experience freedom in an expansive playfield. And through exploring this field, I wanted the user to be able to experience a new sense of adventure again and again, and be able to freely navigate through it as they see fit. By transforming walls, which were used to represent boundaries, into another optional path, it's as if the entire landscape that lays before the user opens up, asking them, so, which path are you going to take? Make the game so that objects react to the player's action, and the objects themselves also influence each other. If we could do this, I felt that we might be one step closer to creating an active game.
This means that everything you see in the game is linked together, so to speak. And these connections don't simply occur by accident. Instead, they're intentionally designed to have an overall consistency and to feel instinctive.
Freedom, they touted. Multiplicative gameplay. Do anything in any order. Break conventions, give the player the ability to choose. That was the mentality at the core of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So if the developers had a mindset that has remained consistent from the very start, how can the reaction to these two games be so different? That's because in what might have been nothing but a consequence of their pursuit of gameplay freedom, they created one of the largest living, breathing, realistic simulated worlds gaming has ever seen. Then Then they lit the match. I spent the past month trying to figure out every possible reason as to why I just couldn't get back into Tears of the Kingdom, despite giving myself the challenge I sought after, despite giving myself new solutions to problems, restricting myself from the stupid rocket abuse and using the same old solutions, stopping to smell the flowers at every possible instance, but the flowers, they didn't smell nice. They made me sneeze time and time and time again. It was betrayal of the senses, and I just couldn't find out why. So it was at this moment that I decided to boot up Breath of the Wild again. And follow me for a moment. Picture this. You arrive at Hateno Village, a quaint farming town removed from the events of a great calamity. On the way here, you witness the destruction that once took place, the last stand of those who had sworn to protect their way of life at all costs. The beautiful valleys in between mountains and rivers, the remain of what was once civilization. As you walk the main street, there's kids playing, stores open to sell their goods, a break from the melancholy of the wild, a glimpse of what life was like everywhere not too long ago. There's a board at the center of town. Monsters need dealing with at Hateno Beach. They're stealing the farmer's sheep, so you make your way. Through the lush green hills of Hateno, down behind the mountain pass, walk through a waterfall, right by the trail that leads to the beach. We're still so close to town, and yet this place, it's beautiful. You imagine the residents of Hateno making trips to this spring, relaxing beneath the trees, enjoying some shade. But duty calls. As you make your way down the hill towards the beach, an intriguing sound catches your attention. A bird standing on top of a pillar of stone, surrounded by the ocean, shares with you a song, claims there is treasure to be found, a riddle to be solved. Utilizing the nature around you, the movement of the sun as time goes by and the stones at your feet, you grab your reward and move on. Rain starts pouring down, so you shelter behind a rock, and by the light of a cozy campfire, you spend the night. Morning comes around, the enemy is near. Using your slate, you observe the encampment from afar, see the captured sheep, and decide how to proceed. Using every tool available in your arsenal to take them down, and it's done. You head back to Hateno, collect your reward, and keep exploring. Fully immersed in the world you're in, believing in it. In Tears of the Kingdom, everyone's wearing mushroom hats now. You made your way here by crashing in with a plane. Let's help the town with an election now. Oh, I found it. I found it. I found it. I found it. The crap I gave. Breath of the Wild's world makes sense. It leaves you questioning the why and the how things are the way they are, but within its own world structure and story, it explains those questions in a way that is satisfying and makes sense. Tears of the Kingdom doesn't go to such lengths. It doesn't even try to begin to explain to you why most islands are this D-pad shape and how that's even possible and why there's levers and launch pads in the center of each one, because in reality, the only reason these islands are designed the way they are is because the developers were sitting in a room together and thinking to themselves, wouldn't it make for a fun multiplicative gameplay edition that provides freedom to the player if they could choose anywhere in the world, set up a launchpad and throw themselves at it? Both games placed gameplay first. However, Breath of the Wild built its world around said gameplay, whereas Tears of the Kingdom merely adopted an already established world, then instead of trying to expand on its strengths and built up narrative aspects, like cowards, they ran. They had no explanation for the divine beasts and Sheikah tech vanishing, but they thought Zonai Ultra Hand would expand their horizons. So they ditched everything in favor of this new storyline. Everything they didn't have a use for in this new story was done away with. No reasoning, nothing. They missed the point. They failed to realize why I and many others fell in love with open world Zelda. It was the freedom, yes, but it was also the world. Look at how many channels here on YouTube have been talking about the world of these games for decades now. Tears of the Kingdom gave up on its world. Locations feel like parodies of their Breath of the Wild selves. Kakariko's the same thing, but now has rings that annoy me when I'm trying to explore. Hateno's the same, but with mushrooms. Terry's Town's expansion makes the most sense, but even then, it's designed the way that it is, purely to allow for Ultra Hand mechanics. The way you interact with the world of each of these games is fundamentally different. In Breath of the Wild, it seems like they cared much more about the moment-to-moment gameplay of just exploring and seeing the beauty in the world and the small things and noticing that every crevice had been put there for a reason. Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, it feels like they're actively trying to drive you away from that world. Like for example, what happened to me in my first playthrough. I went to Lookout Landing and used its Skyview Tower, which led me close to a second Skyview Tower, the one that's closest to that region, which I logically defeated the enemies there, didn't get killed by the spike ball totally, and went up its second Skyview Tower, which led me right to a group of Sky Islands, which I was supposed to explore, because, well, it's the only way to get to those Sky Islands really is from using that Skyview Tower. So much for open world, multiple choices or whatever. No. The best way of getting to each of the Sky Island archipelagos that are conveniently next to one specific Skyview Tower is literally just using the one specific Skyview Tower. Okay. Back to story time. I went there, I completed those Sky Islands, and guess what? They had like rockets and stuff in there, and a direct sight to the next Skyview Tower, which wasn't too far. What did I do? I launched myself into the next Skyview Tower, which was in Gerudo, and by the time I was done with that Skyview Tower, I was already at like the middle of the main quest. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, I would have explored the whole world. Here it was Tower, Island, Tower. Done. I skipped everything in between. The world in Tears of the Kingdom is much bigger, it's expanded, and yet it feels so much smaller than its predecessors because of such choices. In fact, here's me going from Kakariko to Hateno Village in both games utilizing each game's main mechanics to do so. While in Breath of the Wild, I'm seeing the world and getting plenty of opportunities to explore, in Tears, I'm spending almost half the time building, and the other half holding straight ahead in the direction I want to go. And yes, they give you the option to not do so. You could ride a horse there or go on foot. But why? If most locales haven't been expanded upon, if the world you're exploring was clearly created for something else, it feels like walking through a living corpse, where contextless additions have been made everywhere to spruce up what once before held deep meaning. The new things added in Tears of the Kingdom are all disappointing. The Sky Islands are bland, the underground is repetitive, and they give you tools and incentive to actively undermine the world that they spent so long building. In Breath of the Wild, I cherished the journey. I took my time from location to location, and even if the dungeons themselves were kind of boring when I got to them, I loved the journey that got me there in the first place. But in Tears of the Kingdom, I just find myself going from main quest to main quest to main quest without even realizing. This video marks the 1-year anniversary of this YouTube channel, and it wasn't supposed to be a rant. I wanted to tell a story. The story of how I rose above my issues with Tears of the Kingdom and learned to appreciate it for what it was, by crafting my own personal, unique experience that would prove the developers' visions for ultimate freedom correct, as I would only have been able to create such a game, such an experience for myself, because they allowed me to. It was supposed to be positive. However, the journey here only made me realize one thing. That the open world Zelda I fell in love with cannot be replicated without discovery, without adventure, without meaningful exploration in a world worth caring about. And the truth is that behind every single popular open world game, there is a world worth caring about. Breath of the Wild's world was worth caring about. Tears of the Kingdom's, it was not. Thank you for watching my stuff this past year. If this is your first video or if you've been with me for months, thank you, sincerely. I'm grateful that my silly gaming videos are able to resonate with people across the world. If I'm not behind schedule, this video will be uploaded on the 1-year anniversary of this channel. If you had told me from a year ago that they were actually going to be able to upload consistently for a year, I would not have believed you. Content creation has always been my hobby. To do it professionally one day is a dream of mine. So regardless of if a video does well or not well, if it gets picked up by the algorithm or not, I just wanted to say that with every new video uploaded to this channel, I've had fun doing it. I've gotten the opportunity this past year to experience what actually working on your dreams feels like. In a world where so often it seems like at every opportunity you'll be driven away from following your heart. When times are unstable and the ability to get by can end up as a question not a certainty, I have to express just how thankful I am to be able to dedicate so much of my free time to a project such as this one. Maybe one day all my time can be spent here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying motivated to improve my content more and more. With Switch 2 coming out later in this year, I have so much to talk about and share with you guys. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I appreciate your viewership, stranger. Every comment and like and subscription means the world, and it does not go unnoticed. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.